Welcome to the end of the world, survivors. You are tuned into this station, one of the last voices on the airwaves. I'm Harper, broadcasting from a radio station that somehow still hums with life. I am no longer alone, and my friends and I are looking for the author of Robert's Rules of Chaos while we rebuild and forge new alliances. This is where we build our society. There is no going back. But as we forge forward, creating a new world order, I'll share stories of your fellow survivors and how the Robert's Rules of Chaos have helped them survive, or at least given them some goalposts to focus on. I'll be your guide through the madness, sharing the locations of safe havens, theories, and information about our new world, and the occasional existential crisis that comes with a zompocalypse. The world's gone dark, the dead outnumber the living, but we are surviving and rebuilding. The old world is gone, but we are adapting to surviving in this new world and the new rules that come with surviving the zombie menace. Stick around if you're still alive. Hello, fellow survivors. This is DJ Harper coming at you. And I was going to continue with Robert's Rules of Chaos today, but there's a lot more to talk about instead, so we're just going to talk about that. I was going to reread all of the rules, and if we have time before the end of this broadcast, I may still do that. But my last broadcast apparently caused some people to challenge the plant, caused some people to challenge the station. There was a coordinated attack on the plant, the station, and a few of our other communities. Apparently, they did not believe me when I said that each community has a truth demon, to use Violet's turn of phrase. Well, guess what? Those raiders found out differently. It also let us know that there's a network of them. They apparently are cooperating. They just aren't cooperating to build, they're cooperating to destroy. They like the nomadic lifestyle of going from place to place and stealing from others and killing everybody there. And the contempt I feel for people who are going to communities that are established in order to kill everybody there when the world is dead is so thorough. I don't even have words for it except for profanity. And I try not to use profanity. I know the FCC is dead and gone, but I still try to keep this as clean as it would be back in the days of regular radio. So all I have is profanity. But we had a group show up, and it was a group of women and children. It is part of the insidiousness of it. And these women and children spun a tale of fleeing from raiders, needing a safe place, just wanting a hot meal, and everything like that. And I know that if you haven't been having the dreams, that if you don't have any of what I'm just calling superpowers at this point, if you don't have any of these extra abilities, if the people that you are associating with don't have them, you don't believe those of us who are in communities with others who have these powers. You think that we are spinning tails and that we're doing it as a form of protection, because that's exactly what these women thought. And we're not making it up. I actually can tell if you're lying or not. So can Malcolm's people. So can, again, pretty much every settlement. Just like we have somebody who can grow things, there are several other settlements who have others who can poison ivy, from DC Comics. Poison ivy grow. If you give them a seed, you will have a plant. It helps us stay fed. And it's one of the reasons why food is not more dire, because we can grow it. Anyway, if you haven't seen these powers in action, you don't believe that they are there. You don't believe that they are real. And whatever network or group these thieves have, they threw all of it at us all on the same day, which is wild, actually. It's kind of crazy that they did it all on the same day. We're in communication, but it's not like we're necessarily in instant communication. Yeah, we have some ham radios and this, that, or the other, but it's not like we have a cell phone network where we're on the phones with each other or FaceTiming each other or any of that, world stuff before when there was a world. It is very much after the fact. So I'm not certain why they thought a coordinated attack was the best idea. But they hit every single one of us, same day, same time, same plan. They sent women and children in first to lie. And I just have to wonder if the women involved knew that they were cannon fodder, you know? But what we got from some of the older kids, because the kids did survive, um, these children were young enough, like single digits, that they're just going along with whatever the adults tell them. And we have no compunctions about eliminating adults in a group if those adults are trying to come in and do us harm. And one of the things with my ability to tell the truth of a person, to tell the truth of the situation, is I've gotten good enough at it that as they're lying to me, I know what the actual plan is. They lie, but the truth still hits me. And their plan was they would go through the process. They would come in. They would go through the bite check. They would integrate themselves into our community, take about an hour or two to do it, and then they would open the gates for the raiders to come. And I'm aware that this is their plan. I am telling Queenie and Priya as they are talking, these women, as they were talking, what the plan is. And so what we decided to do was to let them come in, because we would not be able to flush out the rest of their raiding party if they didn't come in, if they didn't think that we trusted them. So we let them come in, and we did the bite check, and we gave them hot food, and that food was heavily laced with a narcotic that knocked them right the heck out. And the women, the adult women, were thrown outside of our gates right after the men showed up. And I say men, but it was a mix of men and women, Apparently, being a thieving jerkwad is not gender-based. The women that they picked were the frailest looking of the group, but we still threw them back out there. The children we kept separately. Children can often be saved. And children can be given choices. So we threw the women back out just in time for the men to show up. Well, not just in time. We basically threw them out by way of greeting the men who showed up, because they came running in, mostly on foot. This group didn't seem to have any horses, but this group came running in, and we sort of just dropped these women over the wall, because I will be real honest, at that point we didn't care if they lived or died, because their plan was to kill every last one of us. Their plan was to let these men in, and these men had machine guns, and they had grenades, and they had all kinds of weaponry that was pretty impressive and quite a bit more than what we had. It would not have been a fair fight if they had gotten inside the walls. But we also have a pretty fortified outside, and we have a couple little mad scientist fellows here who can MacGyver anything into an explosive that they want to. It's one of their superpowers. And so we blew them up. And Malcolm's people at the plant took a similar course of action. And the other communities that we're a part of all did something similar. Not all of them blew up, but most of them got taken out. Most of them, I say most, I mean all. Every single community that was attacked survived the attack, and every single community that was attacked took them out in entirety. And I don't know if last week's message was seen as a challenge. It was meant as a warning. It was meant as a adapt or die warning, because none of us here want to kill humans. None of us here want more human death. Robert's Rules of Chaos, these communities, the web of trade routes that we have made, all of it is to keep humans alive. We want our fellow humans to live. None of us want to kill fellow humans, but we will, because we have adapted to survive. We have adapted to the cruelty that is this world. And if we have to kill to keep what we're building safe, so be it. You know, our mad scientists are busily concocting more booby traps that the members of this community will know where they are, and people who come to raid us won't. And they're the type of booby traps where you're probably not going to trip them just walking around. But we can make sure to lead you someplace that you will trip them. We can make sure that if you're coming to steal from us, you will fall into whatever trap we have set for you. And that's not arrogance, me saying that. That's just the facts. That's just the way we have things set up. That is not a challenge. It is a warning. That said, Malcolm, who always does his level best to get intel, made sure to keep a few of the women that were basically the Trojan horses, for lack of a better way of phrasing that. He kept them alive, and he has actual prison cells that he has built for these types of situations. And the truth tellers that he has managed to find, because once Malcolm finds out someone has a power, he goes, who else has that power and how can we acquire it? So he found out that I had the power of discerning the truth, and he went, who else has this power and how can I get them to work for me? So he has a couple of them there that managed to get the truth of this network. And there was a centralized hub that they were all living in. They had been raiding communities, killing everybody in those communities, and, you know, I can't tell you how big of a sin it is to kill other humans in the time of zombies when most humans have died and become the Walking Dead. I it it's worse than cannibalism as far as I'm concerned at this point. Cannibalism is at least about survival. This was not about survival. This is about power over. This was about being big and bad and trying to be a pirate. What's a land pirate? I know there's a word for that. I mean, other than raider, I just, it doesn't matter. But he got the location of where they were located, and he made sure to eliminate the threat. And I'm not going to tell you how he did it, because he has told me not to share that information. But it was quick. And then it was over. And that entire network now doesn't exist anymore, because if you are not here to help others survive and you actually act on attacking any of us, none of us are going to object to your elimination because we want to live. And you don't want us to live if you are one of those types of people. And, as much as we want every human to have a fair shot in this world where the deck of zombies is stacked against us, we're not going to sacrifice our lives for your short-sighted plan. Because eventually you're going to run out of communities to steal from. Eventually you're going to run out of people to raid. Eventually it's just going to be you and the zombies. It's just going to be your community and the zombies. What are you going to do then? You're going to starve to death is what? Because all of the people who were making food and building things and growing things and networking, you killed them all. Humans are finite. We do not have an endless supply of us anymore. There are no longer billions on the earth. If there are millions, we should consider ourselves very, very lucky. There are more zombies than there are living humans at this point. And that happened before the fall of the United States. The zombies outnumbered us so quickly. The zombie infection hadn't even moved into the center of the United States before the zombies outnumbered us population-wise. There were hundreds of millions of zombies. And humanity just dwindled and dwindled and dwindled and dwindled. And we're what's left. So if your modus operandi of survival is to steal from other humans and kill them all, you're not going to survive very long. You will run out of people to steal from because, there's thousands of us, and that won't last you forever. That's part of why we're growing food. The canned food that is in grocery stores or people's homes, that is a finite supply that cannot be replenished. We have to do the work. We have to do the effort. We have to put the seed in the ground. We have to make sure that the crops get rotated in such a way that we aren't pulling nutrients out of ground and not putting them back in. Agriculture and survival are pretty much the way to go here, folks. And that's not where any of us wanted our lives to go. I personally would much rather get meat from a grocery store than from the source. And there's a lot of people here at the station who feel the same way. Like, thank God we have chickens and goats because, goat cheese and eggs have been a saving grace, and we will occasionally have meat, but man, it is rare because it's brutal. And we're back to the times where anytime we have meat, every single aspect of the animal is used because at this point we have all seen so much death that we don't want to see anymore. We don't want to cause anymore. We don't want to be part of the evil that is walking around this world with red eyes. We don't want to be just endlessly hungry mouths devouring everything in our path. None of us want that. And there are so many people working so hard to keep others alive. And that is the majority of the people out there. The majority of the people left in the world are cooperating, are rebuilding, are planting, they're growing things, The majority of us that are trying to survive want our fellow human beings to survive. And any of you who have been listening to me talk for a while, I hate Violet. Hate her. I will hate her until my death. She will hate me until my death. I still don't want her dead. I still don't wish that for her. I wish for her to grow up or become a better person, but I'm never going to trust that she has. That doesn't mean I want her to no longer exist, because she is still a human being on this planet, and there are so few of us left. There are so few human beings that every single one matters. I don't have to like them. I don't have to be near all of them, but I do value them, and I think they're important. And nobody that was part of this network felt that way. And I'll be real honest, we had some communities that did not get attacked at all. And those communities have decided to put themselves in the vulnerable position of taking these children in, because none of the children were really old enough to be part of the attacks, right? However, they all know that they're among people who eliminated people who had stepped up for them, people who fed them, people who were taking care of them. You know, many of them lost their parents in the initial outbreak, but were taken in by this community of thieves, and they were being trained to be thieves. So we're the community that killed the people they were closest to. So they have been sent to a community that had nothing to do with this. They have been sent to people who did not have any part in taking out this coordinated attack of raiders. And we are hoping that by giving them to different groups, and we've given each group maybe 2 children each. Most of the children are separated, and it's one among these different societies that have cropped up, these communities that have cropped up, because 2 people can a conspiracy make. So, most of these kids were split up, and they were basically told that they're still allowed to communicate with each other, but it's supervised communication. You know, if they're writing a letter, that letter will be read before it is given to somebody else. And they are going to be very heavily educated in why we cooperate, why we work together, why growing things is more important than stealing them, why building things is more important than destroying them, why we value life instead of taking life. All of those things are going to be very, very prominent in their future education. And I'm sure the raiders and thieves would consider that a form of indoctrination. But we have to survive. Those children have to grow up to survive. And in order for all of our children to grow up and survive, they have to know how to do it. And you don't do it by raiding a finite supply, whether that is other human beings, whether that is homes that have canned food in it or non-perishables. They need to be taught how to sustain themselves. You know, it's very much, give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish, and he can feed himself for a lifetime. They are going to be both given a fish so they can eat, taught to fish so they can eat in the future when somebody isn't there to provide the fish for them. And these are all really young children, you know. Um, there weren't teenagers among them, which makes me wonder if there's like a band of teenage raiders that we just couldn't get the truth about out there somewhere. Or if just these young children were young enough to be protected and the raiders took out teenagers that were fighting them. I don't know. I don't know. Malcolm would know that, but I certainly do not. What I do know is this has shaken us all up. this has been a very, very upsetting turn of events. People are waking up with nightmares about it. And the nightmares aren't that we were under attack. The nightmares are about how we had to defend ourselves. You know, humans are not built to kill each other. One of the things that Mitch used to talk about is the first word that most groups of people come up with is the word for themselves. And the word for themselves is people. We are the people. In order to get a group of people to commit murder, you have to other a different group. So usually the word that they had for themselves was people, and the word they had for strangers was others in some form or fashion. Now, this is what Mitch would say. I don't know if it's true or not, so don't come at me. But in order to get someone to actually kill another human being, because we're not wired for it. The psychopaths might be, the sociopaths might be, but their wiring is broken. People who are wired without those things don't want to commit murder, don't want to hurt others. We don't want to cause pain and death and destruction. That's part of why the zombies are so horrifying, because that's all they are, is walking pain, walking destruction, walking death. Oh God, they're such walking death. And we have adapted to where we can kill the zombies, and most of us consider it to be an act of mercy because we're letting the person that zombie once was rest in peace. You know, that's why the rippers do what they do. They firmly believe that by ripping zombies, they are putting that soul to rest. They are letting that person continue to exist in a different form, you know? The afterlife isn't something we know anything about, but once a zombie's put down, that person can rest and go to that afterlife, should it exist. And at this point, I really have to believe that it does, otherwise I would go mad. Well, I'd go madder. We're all mad here, aren't we? So we're not designed to kill each other, and it's not something that we like doing. And we take damage every time it happens. Every time it happens. We have nightmares about what we had to do to survive. Those nightmares aren't going to stop us from doing it to any future groups that come our way, though. And I sometimes wonder how much trauma, how much horror, how much death we can all see before we crack. Um, one of my favorite phrases is, before we all go bunker cookies. And bunker cookies is such a good way to describe losing your mind. But yeah, how much death and trauma and despair we can all see before we go bunker cookies, you know? And I don't know the answer to that question, and I hope I don't find out the answer to that. I just hope that the thieves and raiders and murderers go extinct, and that those of us that are left can rebuild in such a way that we don't have to have that happen in the future. Because again, any of these places that were attacked would have happily just allowed them to be part of our society, our community, our group, whatever you want to call it. You know, there are people at the station who don't get along, who don't particularly like each other, but they still work together. You know, they still work around that dislike in order to survive. And so, as much as the past few weeks have been very distressing, we survived it. Just like we've survived everything else, just like we've survived the zombies, just like we will continue to survive. So if you're out there and you've experienced these things and you're struggling with the horror, just know that you are not alone. And above all else, survive, survive, survive. Survive at all costs, if necessary, but survive.